evening, and thanks for joining us again on Bent TV. We've got another show chock full of goodness for you tonight, and we're kicking off with X-Ray Specs with Remy, who is tackling the difficult issue of dementia and what it means for queers.
Hello. Tonight on X-Ray Specs we continue our series of community elders. Tonight I've got a special guest with me. I've got Tony Walsh, and he's here to tell us about his story about having a partner who's living with dementia, and a little bit about what happened for them. Tony, thank you very much for coming along this evening.
Thank you for inviting me.
No, you're welcome. Now I'll start off. Your partner's name is?
Paul.
Paul and
Paul Wen.
And Paul Wen.
Yes.
And how long were you guys have you guys been together?
We've been together for 25 years.
25 years.
Yes.
Right. And
24 of those we actually lived together.
Okay, so really for quite a long time. And how did you guys meet?
We met at a gym, and Paul asked for my telephone number on the way out, and I thought, well, nothing will come of that. You don't meet people like that. But he rang, and we were very good for each other, and we decided we'd make our life together.
All right, beautiful. And then you moved in about how long after that?
Well, about 18 months after that.
Okay, so I think that's a good wait. Now, how did you notice, that things were over the years that things had changed or that Paul was different?
Well, I didn't. I think that's not uncommon. Being a controller, I was amazed. One day I remember it very vividly, being in the swimming pool at home, and him coming back from the doctors and saying that he'd been referred to a memory clinic. And I thought, well, that's a lot of nonsense. I don't see why anything like that needs to happen. And the memory clinic forgot actually to make the appointment, so it was a good 9 months before we actually went to see anybody. And when we went to see a specialist, I began to understand, in fact, that I'd taken over. And I don't know how it came about. The interview was quite long. It was very stressful for me. And suddenly this woman was left in a room with me who introduced herself as a nurse, who said, "Tony, you look very grey. I think we'd better have a cup of tea."
Yeah.
And I was terribly confused. That was the worst moment when I realised that something had been happening and I'd just taken over. I suppose he had problems at work, and that's what stimulated him to mention it to the doctor.
Okay, that's where it became apparent.
I think it probably became apparent at work. He realised that he had big problems there. But he didn't have any problems at home. Tony, the controller, had taken over.
Yeah. So when you say you're a controller, it's not, you don't mean professionally, I mean as a person.
As a person.
Right.
I think there are people who run things and
So slowly he just sort of given weight of his duties and you taken over, so you had no idea that things were different. All right, okay. And then, so 10 years ago, what were the things that you or the traits that you really loved about Paul? And then can you still see those things in him now?
Well, all those things are still present. He's got something called Lewy bodies, which means he has some days when he's extremely confused and other days when he's very clear in his thinking. All those things are there. I don't think there's anything ever between us that's been absolutely special. And both of us have always said we just got on well with each other, and we thought we were made for each other, and we were, until this cropped up.
And so obviously your relationship continues, because where is Paul now?
Paul's in a nursing home in Kew, and they look after him extremely well there, I must say, very well.
All right. And so as soon as he went to the memory clinic, which I assume is basically where they have a look at people who are having memory loss, did they sort of decide that it was time for him to go straight into residential care, or? No,
it was a long time. It took him 3 years to be diagnosed. And from about 2003, he was diagnosed in 2006 with Alzheimer's, which is the most common form of dementia.
Yeah.
In 2007, I began to see a tremor in his right arm, and I took him back to the specialist, and they said, well, there are now Parkinsonian symptoms, and he began to become very stiff. His face stopped having as much an expression as it used to, and that's a sign of Parkinson's. And you can actually have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's together, I understand. And between the time he was diagnosed in 2006 and the time he went into care in 2011, we actually did 14 cruises, and it was on the last one that he became sick. And when he got back, we had a bit of a drama. one day. He had to be taken to hospital, and he was in hospital for 4.5 weeks. And they said, well, it's Lewy bodies, which is a different type of dementia.
Okay. So it wasn't a progression through the disease of the illnesses. It was one thing that just became apparent slowly over time.
Yeah. You actually have to have a diagnosis of and the symptoms of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and hallucinations for it to be a diagnosis of Lewy bodies, and that takes quite some time. And we started going to the memory clinics as about 2003. The full diagnosis didn't arrive until 2011.
All right, so around what age would Paul have been when you first started going to the memory clinic?
2006 was 60.
About 60. That's fairly early, isn't it?
Yeah, very early.
Now, so then...
It's got what's called younger onset. That's diagnosed before the age of 65.
Okay. Now, so he moved obviously into residential care. What was it like adjusting to that for him, do you think?
He was quite seriously ill when he went into residential care. I think Lewy bodies means that during his clear periods he understands that there is a problem which needs him. It means he has to be looked after very well, and that he accepted it. But he was extremely sick when he went in there, and slowly he recovered from that when he had medications continued and he had a routine. Probably going on the last cruise brought things to a head, but it was explained by the doctors it would have happened 2 months later if it didn't happen when it actually happened.
Right. So when we're talking about, because you said he had a good day, so what's that difference between good days and bad days? What happens on a good day and what happens on a bad day?
What happens on a good day is I can normally take him out somewhere. Maybe we go down to Studley Park Boatshed and have tea or an ice cream, something like that. And on bad days I wouldn't take him out of the place because I couldn't be sure how he'd react to anything.
So I mean, what is it like? He will change very quickly, or he'll have a... All right, and what does that...
He can change extremely quickly. In fact, some good days I've been with him, having very good conversation. Half an hour later, he'd be looking confused, staring into space, and he says his brain wanders. That's how he describes it.
Yeah. And so what was that for you as a partner, adjusting to that like?
Oh, that was awful. That was the worst bit. There were two bits that I didn't like. First of all, finding out that there was an issue when first time we went to the memory clinic, and the second time was when he went into care. And suddenly this person who I'd been looking after, because I was retired during the whole of this period, this person I was looking after was being looked after by somebody else, and the house was empty. And that is dreadful. And it's not like putting your parents into care. You're putting your partner into care, and that's a big difference.
Okay, and so I guess what are your hopes for the future and moving forwards?
Well, we understand there is no cure. It can only go one way. The periods when he's in confusion will become perhaps longer and more frequent, or they will become longer and more frequent, and he will then pass away at some stage. And you have to learn to live with that, and that is extremely difficult. And there are a number of my friends who at the moment have said, well, we just can't go and see him because we've known him for so long. And quite frankly, for days afterwards, I'm just thinking about him. I took a friend from Sydney in to see him today, and I think the same thing happened there.
I do need to stop you because we're running out of time. But look, thank you very much for coming along today and sharing a very personal story. Next week we'll be looking a little bit more at legislation and what's happening around this situation, and hopefully we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.
Such an important issue, and hopefully it will be receiving the attention it deserves. Well, now we're off for a short break, so I'll see you back here soon. This is Vent TV, and we've got another segment lined up for you. This one's called Powered Entirely by Ginni, which for some reason conjures up a powered vagina to me. Powered vaginas. Sorry, I went to my happy place for a moment. Here's Ginni.
One thing I love about our LGBT community is our appreciation of divas. Even myself, just to say, I've even beaten myself up for our next segment, for our next guest as well. You may have seen her around Melbourne, shaking her thing, tapping this, tapping that. I'm not talking about tap dancing. Here she is, revolutionising the tap industry. Lashonda Fontaine, hello.
How y'all doing, Ginny?
Now tapping, let's start with that before we get into your background. So this tapestry that you formed around in Melbourne, I've seen you around the clubs, tapping this, tapping that. Not your shoes we're talking about though.
No, Lashonda be tapping asses. That's what Lashonda be tapping.
All right, so tell me, where did this tapestry kind of form? Now, you're from Texas. You lived in New York.
I lived in New York.
So a lot of people think that you're from New York, though.
I like to tell people I'm from New York. I don't like to tell everyone that I'm from Texas.
Right. Is there a bit of a stigma around Texas?
A little bit.
Okay.
My sister happens to work at KFC down Texas way.
So you don't really tell people that.
We don't want to tell no one that.
Now, you're one of four, speaking of your sisters. You've 4 girls in that family. That's a lot of estrogen.
4 girls. There is. There is. We got Lashonda, myself, Konisha, Moesha, Kadesha, and my brother David.
David? Right, so 4 girls and 1 boy. And how's David doing amidst all the estrogen?
He's doing all right. He's doing all right.
Yep.
He loves the ladies.
I've got to say, because that's quite big in your family too, you're all very lady-loving, very appreciative. Now, you moved to Australia just recently from New York. I mean, you're rolling over there with J-Lo, with Alicia Keys.
All that, Jenny. Now I'm here in Oz with you.
With me. You're chilling with your boo.
I'm chilling with my boo.
Like what I did there. But I was going to say, now you're here in Australia because you're actually a solo artist.
I am.
So what are you recording?
Recording some music.
Okay.
I am an R&B dancer, singer. I'm all that.
You're all that.
I'm all that and more.
And your first album is called what? Onely?
Onely.
And your second album will be called?
The second album of Lashonda.
Not Thule or anything like that.
I'm still working on a name. We can talk about that a little bit later.
So tell us, what inspired you? Like, obviously your family said they work in retail. You obviously were the black sheep. You branched out and you...
Well, we all black sheep. I come from a black family.
But you obviously branched out and you pursued music. So tell me, like, what made you do that?
Well, I didn't want to be like my mama, okay? I didn't want to be like my papa, staying in Texas all their life, just sitting on their hands doing nothing. Lashonda could sing, okay? I'm not going to go busking. I'm going to go on stage in New York, in Australia. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it. So I got up and I made it. I made it, Ginny.
You have. Now, you moved to the Bronx in New York, which is where a lot of, like, J-Lo's from the Bronx.
I do a lot of my writing there. A lot of my writing.
What was it like working with J-Lo? Like, I've got to say, is she, like, her derriere, is it really as fun as the magazines say?
She got a big booty. She got a bit of attitude, but once y'all get to know her, she's a nice girl.
She's a nice girl.
Nice girl.
All right.
Not bad songwriter. I helped her with some of her songs.
Yeah, Jenny from the Block?
It used to be Lashonda from the Block. She took my song.
She took your song.
It's all right. I got some royalties. I'm doing all right.
You still cool with the rocks that you got?
I like that. I like that, Jenny. All right.
So in Australia, how have the audiences received you? Because we actually haven't had a diva fly out here and just to live here, actually, because they've all been kind of overseas.
Yeah, at first, Jenny, a lot of people act like they don't know who I am. They all putting up a front and stuff, and Lashonda ain't used to that. I got to tell you, Lashonda had to work hard. They'll love me now.
Because we're a little bit reserved here, aren't we? Like, compared to New York, I think New York's a little bit reserved as well, but compared to, like, LA and Texas, where people are a little bit more
loud.
Open. Oh, I didn't want to
We're loud.
You're loud?
We're loud.
You're very loud. All right. I'm assuming you wrote J-Lo's Let's Get Loud too, based on that.
I did.
There you go. So
I did.
You had to work hard in Melbourne. So when you did this whole, you know, tapping thing, because you're hosting at different parties and stuff,
I had a few issues. I had a couple of assault charges, but they've all been dropped. So Lashonda's back tapping. But at first people were shocked. Like, who is this lady? Tap my ass.
Well, because you were walking around in the lines doing it, weren't you?
Well, I was hosting a gig. I had to welcome everybody. Lashonda likes to make people feel welcome.
Clearly you did.
I did. A few people didn't think so.
Well, what's the strangest thing you've ever seen out at a gig?
Out of the gig?
Yeah.
Strangest thing. Strangest thing, I did not see this in my questions before the show. I'm going to have to get back to you on that one.
No worries. Okay. So, okay, let's go back more to your solo career and you coming out to Melbourne to pursue it. Now, your first album, you're still in recording of it. A lot of people, I've read some reviews, one in The Age saying that you were modelled on Aretha Franklin. They're calling you the next Aretha Franklin. How do you feel about that? That's pretty big.
Well, I think Aretha should be blessed to be compared to Lashonda.
Really?
Well, no, I'm blessed. I'm blessed. I'm very happy. I'm very happy. I got a soulful voice. I got power when I say I got power. Okay, and that's what they're thinking. I'm sounding like Aretha because I got soul and I got power.
You got power. Definitely got a lot of soul. And you're very, I've noticed you're very centered when you're about to sing on stage too. Like, you know, you really center yourself.
I got to focus.
Exactly, because, you know, out there you're chilling with the crew and, you know, you're rolling well, but you're really, really focused.
Well, I want to act like I am, you know, one of them. You know, the people that ain't up like me. I want to act like them. So I got to go mingle and stuff. But when I'm up on stage, got to focus because I am Lashonda Fontaine. I'm an entertainer. People came to see me. I got to perform.
Speaking of performing, now, your tapestry was based on something which I have to ask you, because I heard that you have a special mating call. Now, this mating call has a 200% success rate. Now, would you do me the honour, Lashonda? As you know, I'm single.
I know you are. Ginni.
Speaking of which, so can you help me? Can you teach me this mating call?
It is a mating call.
It is a mating call, because you do this out in the Bronx and girls were just dropping like flies. Would you do me the honour, Lashonda?
I will. Y'all can take this home.
Okay.
Y'all can take this out.
Yep.
So when y'all in a club and you see someone you like, okay, you look them down.
Right.
You look them down, and when they look at you,
Yep.
y'all gotta do this, okay? Y'all gonna laugh.
All right.
It worked though, okay?
All right.
So y'all stand up. Y'all just gotta go. Hoochie mama, what? Y'all gonna get it. Y'all gonna get it. Y'all wanna do that?
Can I try that?
Y'all can try
I'll try that. So it goes what? Like, you gotta stand up?
Stand up.
All right.
Y'all
So,
go. Hoochie.
Hoochie.
Mama.
Mama.
What? Turn around and stand and
And that works.
It worked 200%.
200%.
200%.
Fantastic. All right. Well, I'm going to have to try that. And Saturday night, if I have a girlfriend, I will be sending you a big thank you card.
Y'all gonna have plenty of girlfriends with that.
Really? Okay. Hoochie mama what?
Little higher. Boom.
Up there.
Boom.
Oh, it's almost like cleansing out my sinuses for a second there. That was Lashonda Fontaine teaching me her mating call. Lashonda, thanks so much for
Y'all
joining
welcome.
me.
Thanks for having me, Ginni.
Thank you very much. This has been Just Ginni on Bet TV.
Awesome stuff from Ginni. And we'd love to hear from you awesome things. If you feel like getting in touch with us, why not email us at feedback@benttv.org.au or touch us up on Facebook by liking us at facebook.com/benttv. And we'll be right back after this. Welcome back to Bent TV and the final part of our show, which always makes me feel a bit sad, but only for a moment, because then I remember this segment is In the Thick of It with Sammi, and I always like to be in the thick of it. And this is Sammy's last chat with the ever-entertaining Daniel Witthaus. Let's listen to Daniel telling it like it is.
You're on Bent TV. I'm Sammi Whitehead and I'm joined by Daniel Witthaus. Welcome, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. Now, you've done some amazing work over the years, over 16 years being a great advocate for the GLBTI community. You've had your first book, Beyond That So Gay, Challenging Homophobia in Australian Schools. You're basically in the process of getting out after Priscilla, your nearly 270-day journey, challenging homophobia in amazing remote, regional and rural areas in Australia. To be able to then move on now to your next step is just such an exciting journey for you. Where are we sort of going to be heading now?
After a couple of years of revisiting some of those regional and rural places and having a think about what's the actual gap in Australia, it's quite clear that there's a lack of a national dialogue, a conversation about what can be done across Australia. So at the moment, everyone's in their corner in their states and territories or in their regions saying, this is what we're going to do, but there's not so much a conversation about challenging homophobia education, which is what I'm interested in. So what I have done for the Midsummer Carnival is to organise a launch for the National Institute of Challenging Homophobia Education. It's niche for short. It's a working title. I'm stuck on the acronym, but I'm happy for it to change. But it's basically to step back from this idea that we have to go into issue-based stuff. So, for example, we have conversations about marriage equality, about homophobic bullying in schools, about health and well-being or ageing. What all of them have in common are two things. One is that challenging homophobia is key in getting some change to happen. And the other thing is that stories actually drive that change. So people's everyday stories, people's everyday conversations. So the idea of Niche, the National Institute, is to bring together ideas, people, resources to say what's happening, how can we do more of it, and where are those gaps across the country.
We are starting to really feel like the tide is starting to turn a little bit within our community's favour. I mean, last year we saw the great release of the No to Homophobia campaign, which was throughout capital cities on televisions and through some different areas. And it was able to cover not only homophobia but things like transphobia and biphobia as well. Beyond Blue got on board with the left-handed campaign, being able to try and expose, and that was in cinemas as well. So it really starting to feel like that the broader community is starting to feel a little bit ready.
And the other thing too is that we talk about these formal campaigns and these initiatives that are going on, but what you'll also see on social media and also in Letters to the Editor are all these everyday people who are starting to stand up themselves.
Yes.
And are doing their own kind of little campaigns, or they're challenging and interrupting homophobia amongst the people that they network with, and that's the exciting stuff. It's about what are all of those voices saying, but how can we deepen it? So it's one thing to go, homophobia exists, homophobia happens, but how can we actually deepen that conversation to go, okay, then what? Because one of the things that can happen is that we can just kind of go, let's keep on raising awareness, let's keep on talking about the issues, but what country Australia has said, so driving around the country and having hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cuppas, people are saying, we need practical strategies, we need to know what to do. Okay, we've got it, but we actually need to know what I can do in my classroom, in my rural community, in my police station, whatever that might be. And that's the challenge for us. We need to get better at making this relevant and taking responsibility to say, look, we'd love for everyone to know what they're doing, but they don't at the moment. How can we give them some resources?
That's right, and it's being able to give people also that confidence in being able to stand up and say, I don't agree with what you're saying, I don't agree with what you're acting, and realising that they're not going to be left in this abyss without that support as well. And that's something with myself coming from a rural area. I was an active member in my community anyway, being involved in different organisations. So for me, coming out in my community was not a big deal. But I see younger people moving into the community being same-sex attracted, and there still is that very large stigma because of the backward thinking. And you're right, we are in a bubble, being in a city, not understanding, and it's. Do you think that then we need to move on to try and get that support to move from the city areas out to the regional areas and have that support?
There's no doubt that we need to step outside of the bubble. We're fantastic at doing things in and around the bubble. You know, as I like to call it. We need to get out to all of those places where in our minds we go, oh, we shouldn't really go there, or maybe that would be tough. They're the places that we need to be working in. That's why a few years ago when I did drive around the country, all the places where people said do not go, I said I'm going, because if I don't go, who else is actually going to do that? So you have a story of where you could come out in your community. There are stories like that all over the country, but what about the people who don't necessarily feel confident, safe, supported in order to do that? And that's what my work is about, is arming up people to be able to do that.
And the reality that we also see too is we talk a lot about youth and the dangers that our youth face with their own mental health. If they can actually see other members in the community being able to stand up, and it's not about coming out, it's being able to provide that support, then they feel more confident about being themselves, and that's all we can ask for, really.
Yeah, because when people think about challenging and interrupting homophobia, they think that they have to do something extraordinary. They have to do something that they've never done before, that's out of their comfort zone. And what I try and talk to people is it's what you do in your natural networks. So, if you want to challenge homophobia and make a difference, have everyday conversations with the people in your local community, with the people that you know, the people in your family, your sports team, your workplace, wherever that's going to be. That will make a big difference, more so than having to go out and shout it from the rooftops to people who you don't know.
And that's what it comes down to, is because one story starts another story, then we have a volume, then we have an encyclopedia, and then people feel confident about being themselves.
And people get worried that it's hippie, but it's true. It's about everyday connections, and it's about that personal stuff. If you have an ongoing, significant and existing relationship with someone and you come out to them, you'll do more for homophobia than any campaign, legislation change or program in school will ever do.
Absolutely. Daniel, where can we go to find out more information on all the amazing work that you're involved in?
Yeah, if people go to thatsogay.com.au, they can find out everything that I'm currently doing. They can get some free resources. They can find out about books and launches and look at YouTube videos and say good day if they would like to.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us on Bent. I've been Sammi Whitehead. He's been Daniel Witthaus. You're on Bent TV.
Well, that brings us to the end of the show once again. And as always, if you feel like joining me as a volunteer on Bent TV, you should definitely drop into benttv.org.au for further info. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we look forward to having you over for more fun times next week.